Hello, welcome to Structure Dynamics' Open Semantic Framework Academy. Today's tutorial number 13 is on specifying widgets for OSF Entities fields. Your host for the session is Fred Giasson.
Hi, in this screencast I want to show you how you can specify the field type of the resource you are synchronizing or mapping into Drupal using the OSF or Drupal modules. So as you can see right there, I'm looking at one of the resource type, which is a property address, and then we already synchronize all the properties that create that bundle. So what interests me right now is this field type column. So as you can see, you have different field type for the fields that have been mapped to the REF properties. In the previous screencast, if you remember, none of these, all of these field types were using the text field type. However, there is a way for you to define the field type that you want to get or assign or to use for each of these fields that you're mapping into Drupal. So as we can see, for some of these properties, we did use different kind of field types. So for one, we used the text, another one the integer, the geolocation, and so on and so on. So how is it possible to change or to specify that field type? The first thing to keep in mind is that once you started to synchronize or to create field in Drupal, it's not possible to change its field type. So it's really important to do this configuration before starting to use your portal. This being said, there's a way to specify which field type you want for each of the properties that you are using for defining all your information into OSF. So how it works is that you have to define this into the ontologies that are loaded into your OSF instance. So as we can see, there's a way to specify an ontology. Okay, for this field, I want it to be mapped into Drupal using that field type. And then when we will do the mapping, so the entity synchronization or the entities mapping process, the system will read the ontology, will check which field type that should be used into Drupal for manipulating information about these fields, and it will use it and set up it into Drupal, just as we will see in a moment. So the way it works is that first you have to check the ontology. So the ontology we'll be using is the now ontology, which is used for this portal. And after that, what we want is to focus on the properties. So we'll go to the property tab and we will expand the data properties section. So these are all the data properties that are being used by the system. So for each of them, so let's use a commercial real estate property type. So we have all the description and all the properties of this property. And at the bottom, you have an advanced section. Where is this configuration occurring is there. In the advanced section, you have a Drupal settings section. And in this section, you have a field type section. So this is a field type that will be used for creating a form that will manipulate information about that field when it will get synchronized into Drupal. So if we take something else, so if we take effective from date, if we click expand, then what we see is that the field type that will be used is date. So I would suggest you to go to the wiki.opensemanticframework.org website to check all the available field types that exist for you. However, if, for example, we want to change that, let's say that we want the geolocation field. So if you start typing there, you just have to look for the Drupal ontology and click the geolocation. So this will specify in the ontology the field type that should be used for manipulating the values of that field into a Drupal form. Let's say that we configure everything. So all these properties have been configured that way. So the next step is, so let's say I did specify all the fields I wanted for a specific bundle that I want to map. So let's say the next step is for me to configure Drupal. So I will go to the OSF Drupal settings, entities connector. So what I want to do, as you saw in the previous screencast about the resource entities, so what I want to do is to expose a new entity. And then the new entity I want to expose, for example, would be arenas. So arenas that exist in my city. And then I just want to do the mapping for this one, so I click next, select properties. Now, these are all the classes I want to map as bundles into my system. So if I click arenas, these are all the fields that are currently used for describing information about arenas in my OSF instance. So what I want is to create a field in Drupal for each of these properties. So what is interesting is that for each of these properties, so each of these properties will become fields into Drupal. However, as you just saw previously, I did set up these properties such that the ontology will instruct Drupal, OSF for Drupal, to use a specific field type for all the fields that are being created into the system for this bundle. So that's what I will do. So when I click expose, what OSF for Drupal does is just to communicate with the ontology, check which field type should be used. If nothing is defined, then the text field type will be used. And then it will create all the fields in all the field instances for this bundle. Now that the process is finished, then what happened is that I did create a new bundle, a new arena bundle with all the fields instances for the properties I selected in that process. So if we go to structure resource types, then I have my new bundle called arenas. So if I click manage fields, I get all the properties that I selected that are now considered fields into Drupal. What is interesting is that all the field type I defined into my ontology have been properly created into Drupal. So now I have text fields, I have long text fields, date fields, booleans fields, geolocation fields, and so on. So when I do create these things, then all the field types are defined and all the default widgets are used. So what's the next step? So let's just take a look at with this default processing, what happened when come the time to edit information about arenas. So let's just go check the resources. I'm already filtering for the arenas records. So let's take this one and let's edit that arena. So without doing anything, here is what I got. So for all these things, I have different kind of fields depending on the what I define into my ontology. Okay, so this is the geolocation stuff. There we have the located in, which is an object property, so it refers to an existing resource which exists in our data set, and so on. However, you will notice a few issues there. First of all, there is no order, it's just random, and you have these things for which nothing happens. So once you did map all the properties and the bundles, so once you get there, the work is not finished. So there may be fields that you don't want to expose, probably that the ordering of the fields is not correct. But more importantly, all the widgets, or most of the widgets, needs to be configured. So if we take a look at, for example, at the boolean, so if I edit the first one, concessions, then I get there. These are all the properties that I can set up for the boolean field. So what interests me right now is this. So what are the values that should be displayed beside the checkbox. So if the value is on, and I say yes, and if the value is off, then I say no. So I will just save that setting. Now I will go back to my page and I will refresh the form for that record. So you see, concessions now have yes and no. So that's the kind of configuration that needs to occur. So another example of that is, let's say that effective from date and effective to date should only have one value. So we should not be able to have more values. So right now, if we check where this thing is, so effective from date and effective to date, if you see, I have the possibility to add new effective from date values, but I don't want this to happen. So what I have to do is just to go edit that field and then check for a property that says the number of values. So I want to limit the number of values to 1 for that effective from date field. And I want to do the same for effective to date field. So I want to set it up at 1. Now let's see the impact on my form. So the impact on my form is that I'm not able to define more than one property, more than one value for each of these properties. And after that, what else? Well, let's say that the first thing I want to be able to define are the latitude, longitude. So see what happens? What I'm doing there is just to reorder the order of the fields as they will be displayed in a form. And after that, let's say I want the number of ice surfaces at the top, and has parking lot, and maintained by, located in. Where is the located in again? Okay, so let's say this is the order I want to have. So what I do is just to save this and then to refresh my form. So as you can see, the top fields will always remain the same. So you will always have the unique identifier, dataset provenance, the pref label, and description at the top. But after that, all the fields will get ordered. So I said that the first one I wanted is the latitude. And then the second one, so the first one and second one is the same. So latitude and longitude is just that because of this kind of widget, the latitude and longitude belongs to that field widget. And after that, the number of ice surfaces, has parking lot, hasn't been configured, so it's why it's empty, location, and so on and so on. So I just reordered these fields. So now let's say I want to change the name of these fields. So what I would like to see there is not latitude, is like location or geographic location. So what I can do is just to click latitude, and I will change the name geographic location. I will click save. Now if I refresh, I can see that the name changed. Now what I want for that field just to be able to have a single value. So what I will do is number of value 1. So I will refresh. And so it changed a bit, such that I can only have one value. So now that's how it works. Really what you have to do is to check and familiarize yourself with the field widget configuration. So every time you click edit, you should check what are the possibilities that you have how you want your form to be presented to the users that will be modifying and creating new information into your system. So that's how it works. That's how you can configure the field type and the field widgets to create wonderful forms that will help people to add and modify information into your system. Thank you for listening.